Hello? You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it.
What's that? Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
Get out there, play hard, enjoy those games.
Welcome in, everyone. Show 4 of 4 for the NCAA Tournament region shows. March Madness is upon us. Thank you to the Grueling Truth for getting the shows up expediently. Hopefully one of our shows has helped one of our listeners, Youngster, win their bracket challenge as we record on the Interpeak studio line today. Youngster, how you doing on this beautiful Thursday morning?
I'm good. I'm doing very well. I found out yesterday that I have the entire tournament weekend, that first round, second round games completely off. I asked for a couple off for vacation days because I'm a nerd, but the other 2 days I got off as well. So I am very excited. I have Friday off, Saturday off, Sunday off, Monday off, where I'm just going to literally be watching 48 hours of basketball over those 4 days, because Eastern time-wise, tournament starts at around noon, it ends at around midnight. That's what I'll be doing. So I am very excited. And for the fans that don't know, they haven't listened to any other show, I woke up like 10 minutes ago, so that's why my voice is a little a little groggy, and I may not sound the happiest right now. But trust me, I am ecstatic. As ridiculous as that sounds.
It's still not going to top the depressed show. Still not going to top that one.
No, that's good. I appreciate that.
Well, Youngster, this is it. We're going to wrap it up. Show 4 of 4, Midwest region today. We've got, I wouldn't say we got any like huge upsets. Maybe. I mean, I took LSU over Michigan so far. I took North Carolina over Baylor. Yeah, I think I got a couple of upsets. What about you?
Yeah, I was thinking about this yesterday. Like, what's my big upset go-to? That's, I think, the thing that strays away from most is that Baylor upset. We both have North Carolina over Baylor, which leads to interesting things down the road for me, because I have Arkansas beating Ohio State in that South region. So it makes a Arkansas-Purdue matchup for me in the Elite Eight. And I know both those teams have flaws, and all these teams do one way or another, but it's it's easy to see both those teams losing pretty early just because something doesn't go their way. For Baylor, they have to not only not shoot well, but their guards, which defend at a fantastic level, and create a bunch of turnovers and steals, which gets them on the fast break, and they finish, and their guards are seniors, and they're a phenomenal team. That's why they were undefeated for 9/10 of the year. But it's there's easier ways for Purdue and Arkansas to lose than Baylor. But we both think that North Carolina, and for me personally, I think Purdue could pose huge problems for Baylor. So that's the big thing that I'm going with. I have a 13 seed in the Sweet 16, which there's always one double-digit seed to make the Sweet 16. It's just a matter of which one. Usually they don't make it further than that. Sometimes they hit the Elite Eight. Obviously, there have been double-digit seeds in the Final Four. But, so nothing else insane. Like I have Texas instead of Alabama, and then I've got a couple other one seeds in there in the Final Four. And like I said, I've got Purdue and Arkansas in the Elite Eight in the South. But, yeah, nothing insane probably outside of that early Baylor loss, because most people, if they have an early one seed losing, it's Michigan. So I've got that too, but I've got them going further than Baylor, which is interesting.
Well, if you're a Badger fan, you should be happy that I picked North Carolina, because you know what's now going to happen, Youngster. Wisconsin's going to beat North Carolina just to ruin my bracket.
Right.
just to do it. Just to ruin my bracket, Wisconsin will win the first game. That's why it's a risky pick, because Wisconsin could beat North Carolina. If they shoot the lights out from three-point land, they win. And then I'm screwed. Literally screwed. But oh well. Let's get into the Midwest. Well, you want to get in, we've got a coaching change.
Yes. Also, if Baylor loses early, then, then it's fine. It's just a matter of Baylor not going on this big run. Like, that's what we're kind of betting on with our bracket, is that Baylor doesn't go on this big run. We're betting that, Gonzaga gets to the Final Four. We're betting that Gonzaga doesn't lose early. Otherwise, that would suck for us. We're betting that Michigan doesn't get to the Final Four. If they do, that sucks for us. So, anyway, you pick and choose kind of where you want to take your shots, and if it's a round earlier than you think a team might actually lose, but it's worth taking the gamble, then it makes sense to. But anyway, yes, the one head coaching hire we wanted to talk about, because I failed to bring it up in our last show, even though it happened before our last show. Micah Shrewsbury became the head coach at Penn State. And Penn State, we talked about this at the start of the year, they had an interim head coach entering the start of the season. Because of Chambers and what he did, they let him go over the off season, and so they brought in an interim, and at some point you need to hire somebody long term, and you don't want it to last too long because this is college, you're recruiting kids. You want them to buy into a system, buy into a coach for possibly 4+ years. And if you've got an interim guy in there, and the interim guy's like, I honestly don't know if I'm going to be the head coach here next year, but you know what? You should come play for us. It's not a great sell. And also, Penn State has had at least 4 guys enter the transfer portal within the last few days. So that was before, I want to say that was before the Shrewsbury hiring. That has nothing to do with him. But again, these guys want to go elsewhere because they saw Penn State have decent success, but you can't even really call it success this past year for Penn State. But so they want out.
They were Penn State. They were what we expected Penn State to be, youngster. They didn't poo the bed on me, and they didn't exceed my expectations. They were Penn State. That's it.
Yeah. They were 7-12 in Big Ten play, which, considering their talent and considering they had an interim coach, honestly, that's better than I thought they would have done, to be honest with you. But, yeah. So, anyway, yes, Micah Shrewsbury, where does he come from? Just a very quick background before we get into this Midwest region and wrap up our tourney previews here, or region previews for the NCAA tournament, which technically starts Thursday night. That's tonight, as we're recording the show Thursday morning. But again, the bulk of the games start on Friday. That's when everything really gets going. You have the first 4 Thursday night, and then Friday, that's when you have, 16, or is it 30? No, 16 different games. Basically 4 games going on. Once you're really in the thick of things, 4 games are basically going on at any given time, which is, for me, it's heaven. But for Shrewsbury, he is only 44 years old. He started coaching as an assistant in 1999. He actually coached as an assistant at this place where UW-Whitewater played this team in the women's Final Four while I was a sports editor at UW-Whitewater for their school newspaper, and they played this team, DePaul. Not DePaul, but DePaul. They played this team in the Final Four. That year they lost. DePaul was actually undefeated. Not that anybody listening to this literally cares, but that's how I know DePaul. And then after DePaul in 2003, he took over IU South Bend as the head coach. That was his first and only time serving as a head coach. He was a head coach for 2 years there. What did he do? His first year, they went 3-28. And then his second year, he went 12-20. So he certainly improved in a couple of years. As to why he left that, I don't know. I don't know if he got fired. I don't know. I personally don't know. what happened there. But after his time there, he went to Butler literally the year right after, and he joined Brad Stevens for 3 years, and then he went to Purdue as an assistant for a couple of years. Then he went back to Brad Stevens with the Boston Celtics for 5 years. Then he went back to Purdue as an assistant for 2 years, and now he's Penn State's guy. So a little bit of bouncing around, not much head coaching experience.
He does like to bounce around, youngster, so we'll see how long he endures at Penn State. I mean, that's a tough gig. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
This is a tough gig at Penn State. Coming into, if we talk about Penn State football and, being a tough gig as a Big Ten football coach, well, Big Ten basketball at Penn State, that's a tough gig. Like, if you can be around, literally, where they were at last year, youngster, 7-12, if they can be around 7-13 to 500, that's like huge success at Penn State. It really is, considering the landscape of the Big Ten. Where is Penn State ever going to be ranked in the preseason coaches poll for the Big Ten? Probably 10th, 11th. Right. That is realistic. Maybe you catch lightning in a bottle with the recruiting class, and where does that put you? 5th or 6th? This is never. I mean, if you can turn a team into a consistent top 4 in the Big Ten in basketball, hallelujah, Penn State basketball. But it's never been there. This is a tough gig at Penn State coaching basketball. Good luck to them. Good luck. We like when all the teams are good. Makes the conference better. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. For what it's worth, I'm a Celtics guy, so I know his name. When I saw the headline that he got hired, I was like, oh, okay. I know that guy. I didn't know, I haven't looked into his past too much because he was a Celtics assistant. I wasn't, sitting there digging about his background at the time. But, yeah, I know of him. From what I hear, read, people respect him. So but again, we'll see how he does at Penn State in the Big Ten. It's a hard gig. What are your expectations? How does he deliver? That's what it comes down to. But
the nice thing is, youngster, is that there's not Big Ten championship expectations put on his shoulder. There's not Final Four expectations put on his shoulder. Unlike Archie Miller down at Indiana. That was, you need to get us into the tournament consistently and get us to Sweet 16, Elite 8, none of this bubble team NCAA and not getting in. Yeah. At Penn State, if he brings them to the tournament, if he can get them as that 12 seed every year, I think Penn State would be happy with that. I really do. Yeah. So that is a plus to that gig, is that you don't have huge expectations on your shoulders. You want to make the tournament. Every coach wants to make the NCAA tournament. That's the goal. And if they are a consistent team, can be on the bubble and have a couple lightning in a bottle years, the guy could have longevity at Penn State. So we'll see. Right. All right, let's carry on.
Yes, Midwest region, last region. If you are interested in Troy and I talking about the South, the East, the West regions, kind of recapping the Big Ten tournament before getting into the West region because it was our first show after the Big Ten tournament, check out thegruelingtruth.com where all of our regional preview shows are held. They are up, they are posted, as obviously this is, if you're listening to this. So all of our region shows are posted. And check out, again, that's over at thegruelingtruth.com. Check us out on Twitter at youngsteroldman, all one word. Check out Inner Peak Coffee, innerpeakcoffee.com. That's our sponsor for all the shows that we do, not just Big Ten related, but every show that we do. Again, innerpeakcoffee.com. They don't just sell coffee for free, delivering not necessarily for free, but the delivery part's for free. Delivery for free to your door. Not just coffee, but apparel, mugs. There's a lot of different things as well. So, again, innerpeakcoffee.com. Shout out to them and our show sponsor as we do the show via the Inner Peak Coffee virtual studio.
And I'm anteing up, youngster, for the bracket challenge. I am anteing up out of my own pocket. I am going to give the winner of the bracket challenge, I'm going to give them a gift card for Inner Peak Coffee.
There you go. Cool.
Value to be determined. But they are a good sponsor. Inner Peak Coffee is awesome.
It could be a $1,000 gift card. You never know.
No, don't.
Alrighty.
Don't even go there. Don't go that high. Could be $1.
Yeah. It could be. Yeah. For you to do anything is appreciated in general. Our tournament bracket group is not very hefty, by the way. I think it's at 5 right now. So I have texted my father to join, and he has not joined yet.
Your mom flat. Yeah, was it? Or no? I don't remember who it was. Somebody flat out said no on Facebook when you put join my bracket. It was
probably one of them. Oh, really? I was going to say if it was one of my friends, then that wouldn't surprise me because that's just what we do. We kind of screw around. But anyway, regardless. So let's actually get into this Midwest region here. Illinois is the 1 seed. Rutgers is the 10. This is it. This is the 8th and 9th Big Ten teams we will be talking about. Again, in the West region, we only had Iowa as the lone Big Ten team. Over in the East with Michigan, we had, Michigan, Michigan State, and Maryland. And then in the South, we have Ohio State as the 2, Purdue the 4, Wisconsin the 9. And then here we are in the Midwest. Again, Illinois is the 1, Rutgers is the 10. So Illinois is the 1 seed to start off. They get Drexel in the first round. I didn't look at Drexel, but I was listening to a podcast, Troy, I don't know what it was, yesterday, 2 days ago. I've done a lot of homework with this tournament in general, not just Big Ten related, but I always nerd out for this tournament. And they were talking about Drexel, and I believe their tallest guy that they actually utilize is like 6'7".
Good luck.
Against Kofi Coburn, that's a nightmare for anybody. So anyway, Illinois is going to move on there, and then they're going to play the winner of Loyola Chicago and Georgia Tech as the 8-9 matchup. Loyola Chicago, obviously for most tournament lovers, probably remember their little Final Four run they had. That was fun a few years ago.
It was neat. That is what I love about the tournament, youngster. They totally destroyed my bracket, right? But how could you not cheer for them? How could you not? And it wasn't the none getting on the internet and whatnot. It was the fact that this team is making a run. You know, they busted my bracket, but I always love an underdog, and that was quite the story. It was a great story. That was a good run. I don't know if they have a good run like that this year because, if you get by the first round, there you go, mighty Illinois sitting right there on your doorstep. Good luck with that.
You could make an argument that this team is better than the one that made the Final Four. That being said, there are teams that are phenomenal that lose in the first round every year. So, I mean, part of it is luck. Part of it is you have a bad shooting night. Part of it is the other team hits 64% from 3 one night. That's March Madness for you. This Loyola Chicago team, again, if you have not gone to KenPom.com, you may have heard of it if you've listened to podcasts, read up on the tournament, and, some people cite it, like, according to KenPom.com, per KenPom.com. It's a phenomenal site that tracks a bunch of different metrics for this team, or this sport. And over at KenPom, they have Loyola Chicago ranked as the number 9 team overall in the country, just based on everything they do. So that goes to show, and not that, KenPom is the Bible of college basketball, but it is very informative. So for Loyola Chicago to be ranked 9th in the country goes to show that they're a good team. They're not your average 8 seed. I'll say that much. So they're very good. They did not give Illinois any favors. This is obviously a little in-state rivalry, especially for Loyola Chicago, because the big dog in the state is going to be Illinois, and Loyola Chicago obviously wants to prove everyone wrong and prove that, no, Illinois is overrated. We're the best school. Look at this, even when they're a 1 seed. So they have that going for them as well. I will say this, that Georgia Tech is the 9 seed. They won the ACC tournament Georgia Tech didn't win the ACC tournament on accident, although a couple things broke their way because of COVID. But that said, Georgia Tech, even in my mind, is better than a 9. I think Loyola Chicago is better than an 8. Even if Illinois plays Georgia Tech, it's not going to be fantastic for Illinois. Is Illinois better? Yes. I'll let the cat out of the bag now. I thought Illinois a few weeks ago would not lose another game, and they haven't since then. And I'm sticking to that. There's no reason for me to change at this point. I have them winning the whole thing. So that's, you know the end result from me. But no favors for Illinois in the second round. And then if you move on, if Illinois gets to the Sweet 16, you probably play number 5 seed Tennessee or number 4 seed Oklahoma State. And Oklahoma State they've done a lot this year. They have Cade Cunningham, who's the number 1 NBA draft prospect. He's fantastic. He's a lengthy wing who can drive to the basket at an elite level. He can pass really well. He shoots over 40% from 3. I mean, he's the number 1 prospect for a reason. And even without him, they beat West Virginia this year, who's the 3 seed. With him, they have beaten West Virginia twice. They've beaten Texas. They've beaten Texas Tech. They beat Oklahoma twice. Those are all tournament teams. And in the Big 12 semifinals, they just beat Baylor to give Baylor their second loss. So this Oklahoma State team is, realistically, they're better than a 4 seed. And honestly, in my opinion, Troy, before I kick it back to you, this Oklahoma State team is the second best team in this region. They're better than number 2 Houston. They're better than number 3 West Virginia, in my opinion. They are a lot more dangerous than those 2 teams. Houston's very interesting, but I'd rather play Houston than Oklahoma State, to be honest. So, I have Illinois making the Elite 8 and getting out of this little pod here of Sweet 16 and tough teams they can play, but Tennessee is good as well. But I'll kick it back to you and your thoughts.
Well, there's some teams that you just know you want to take far in the tournament. Oklahoma State was one of them, and it sucks that they put them in the region with Illinois.
Right.
It does. So when I looked at it and found Oklahoma State, it just moved them forward. Then they got to play Illinois, right? So that sucks. But like you, I have Illinois coming through to the Elite 8 there, youngster. But Oklahoma State, I didn't even look at who they were playing. I just moved them forward in the bracket. I clicked the little bubble. Literally clicked the little bubble. That's how good they're playing. You don't beat Baylor because you don't beat Baylor by accident. Baylor's a good team. We talked about Baylor. We have them being upset. That doesn't mean that they're not a good team. Some people thought they were the best team in the country. But again, Baylor is based on shooting and defense. Oklahoma State, they've got the best player in the country. And when you have the best player in the country, you can do a lot of things in this tournament. So I didn't even question them until I got them to Illinois. That's where I got them losing. So there are my quick thoughts on that part of that bracket.
Yeah, to be honest, if Oklahoma State was in the East region, that's the Michigan region, I would have Oklahoma State in the Final Four. And if Oklahoma State was in the South region, the Baylor region, I'd have them in the Final Four. That's, to me, they're playing at a top 4 level right now. With Gonzaga, I have in the Final Four, and like I said before, I have Illinois winning the whole thing. So, to me right now, I think Iowa would be very interesting. Oklahoma State, if there's kind of a downfall, it's that they're, again, a smaller team, which a lot of these teams that are really good, they just have a bunch of really good athletes and really good guard play and good wing play, but they don't necessarily have that one dominant big guy. And so usually it gets them far, but they don't win the whole thing. Not always true, but usually. But so again, Iowa with Garza would give them a problem, and that's how I think Illinois wins this game. Is Oklahoma State has to overcommit to Coburn on the inside, and that frees up the guards obviously to do their thing. So that's why I have Illinois winning that game. By the way, Oklahoma State plays Liberty in the first round. Liberty would have been a very trendy upset pick in this tournament to pick, but again, they play Oklahoma State, which some people like myself think they're Final Four caliber. So that's Oklahoma State's road is not easy just to get to Illinois. This top half of the Midwest is very difficult. Oregon State kind of lucked into, winning the auto, not lucked in, but they won the auto bid in the Pac-12 by going on a run, and so they're the 12 seed here. But all these other teams, I guess, outside of Drexel are very interesting. So it's a very, very tough road for Illinois, but if they get past that, I think they get past the Elite Eight game much easier, which brings us to the bottom of this region. And with that, I'll kind of step away from Illinois for a second because Rutgers is down here. Rutgers is the 10 seed, and in the first round, they play Clemson, 7 seed. Rutgers is actually favored as a 10 seed in this game. It's only by like a point or a point and a half, but point being that Rutgers is favored as the higher seed, lower seed, whatever you want to technically call it. But the 10 seed is favored to beat the 7. And I will say this, that Rutgers, just based on this region, they could go on a run. They really could. And I know, Troy, you've been waiting for Rutgers to just get in the tournament, and myself as well. You obviously have had, a more vested interest than I have. But Rutgers could realistically make a run. Not only do I think they beat Clemson, but in the next round they would play the 2 seed, which again is Houston. And Houston's really good. Houston's defense is fantastic. By the way, speaking of fantastic defenses, Loyola Chicago has the number 1 ranked defense in the country in terms of efficiency. So just quick nugget on Loyola Chicago there. They're much better than an 8 seed. But so Houston's another one of these small athletic teams. They have NBA, at least one for sure, NBA player on their team. But they're another smaller, athletic, fast team. But Houston, at the end of the day, defensively, they're great. Offensively, efficiency-wise, in the American Conference, they were able to crush some people. This is a team that I said they were fast, but they actually play it really slowly. That's kind of their tempo, which, again, you can check out at KenPom, how fast these teams play. Houston plays it very slowly. So, anyway, Houston's very, very guard wing heavy, which Rutgers is as well. I do think they play in the second round, but Rutgers also has Miles Johnson on the inside, who's averaging over 2.5 blocks per game going into this tournament. He's
200.
6'11".
You almost slipped out 200 there, youngster. 200 blocks a game.
No, not quite. But over 2.5 blocks a game, and he's 6'11", and he's not necessarily an offensive force, but he can score. But defensively, that's where Miles Johnson creates havoc. And if Houston is looking to drive the paint with their elite guards and wings, and they meet a big guy who is clearly the best big guy on the court, it could pose some problems. So there is a way that Rutgers not only gets past Clemson, but gets past the 2 seed, and then you're looking at further things down the line. But I'll kick it back to you first, Troy.
Well, the thing with Johnson, Kevin, when you look at that matchup, I have Rutgers moving on too. Clemson's a good team, though. Again, this region right here, you look at these seeds, 7, 8, 9, 10. I could take all the 7, 8, 9, 10 teams, put them in a conference, and it would be a toss-up every year. That's how close that 7 through 10 is. So I don't even look at the seeds when I start looking at 7 through 10. I'm looking at the teams. And a lot of times, those seeds you're looking at, a lot of times, Power 5 schools, right? Like you're looking at Clemson from the ACC, you're looking at Rutgers from the Big Ten. That's going to be a good game. But in the middle, Kevin, the way that Houston can get by Rutgers is continually drive. Yeah, they're going to get some shots blocked, but if they can get him in foul trouble and get him out of the game, I see Houston driving the glass hard in the first 5 minutes of the game to try and get him in foul trouble. Once you get him out of the game, then it's Houston's way to advance. But if he holds his own in the middle and can stay out of foul trouble, he's got to stay on the floor. That's the thing. For Rutgers, you talk about it, Kevin, I wouldn't care if he scored 0 points in the whole NCAA tournament. The guy is in there as a rim protector. Stop guys from driving the paint and grab defensive rebounds so the other team is one and done. If he can do that, Rutgers can advance. And yes, I think they could go on a little mini run, but it's all going to come down to, can they keep their defensive guy on the floor? Rutgers has stumbled at times. They've been a little bit up and down, but man, they finally made the tournament after all these years. And yes, where you were going with that, for the loyal listeners that have been with us for 5+ years, I've been wanting Rutgers to get in any tournament when we started this podcast, and now they're in the big dance. And I do think that they can give Houston a game, but unfortunately, I couldn't play with my heart, youngster. I had to take my gut. My gut says Houston just has too many good wing players. If they can swing the ball, if they can drive the paint, I think they can get by Rutgers. I would not be surprised if Rutgers won, because they could, but I had to go with the logic pick there, not with my heart. I wanted to pick Rutgers, but I just couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. That's all.
I agree with you 100% there. That's basically what happened for me. I have Houston advancing as well. A couple quick nuggets on Rutgers and Clemson in the first round, because it is.
I'm going to interrupt real quick, though, youngster. If they get by Houston, I mean, then you got a Rutgers team that is Big Ten battled, and again, it just comes down to the big guy in the middle. But like you said, could they go on a mini run? Could they meet Illinois again? I think they certainly could. They're that good, and they're a 10 seed.
Yeah.
But we've also seen Rutgers at, and it seems like when they're bad, but when they're good, they're good. That's kind of where they're at. So if they could get by Houston, I think, like you said, they could keep going. But I just, again, logically, I think Houston has too much on the outside for them. And the way that they drive to the basket, I just don't see him not being in foul trouble. Because he's an aggressive guy. He's real aggressive.
Yeah.
You don't get 2.5 blocks by sitting there flat-footed. He doesn't just put his hands up. He's an aggressive player. And that can lead to a lot of fouls when you have guys that are driving to the hoop. So that's all I got. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. So, again, a couple things quickly, mostly with Clemson, but also with Rutgers. Clemson, so far this year, they've beaten Purdue, Maryland, Alabama. So they've had some big wins. They're 1-2 in their last 3. They're 7-6 in their last 13. So they haven't been great down the stretch. Clemson, as a whole, they play slowly, but they have the 20th ranked defense in terms of efficiency. Offensively, they're barely in the top 100. So this is a defensive, slow it down type of team. That's the kind of game you're going to see in the first round here with Rutgers. And also something interesting to note, for Clemson this year, Ken Pom has a luck kind of a tab with in terms of just how lucky your team has been. I don't know exactly what that gets into, but all these teams have a luck rating. And Clemson this year, they ranked 7th in the country in terms of luck. Again, I don't know exactly what that means, but they've been fairly lucky in terms of how their season has played out. Just based on some games, maybe that means, a really good three-point shooting team has an absolutely terrible shooting night. Maybe it means that a bunch of guys just randomly got in foul trouble. I don't know. But in any case, Amir Sims is their best player, the best rebounder, but he's also 6'8". So again, this Clemson team has a size issue, which will lead to Miles Johnson being able to probably be a problem on the interior for him. So again, Rutgers, and Miles Johnson isn't even their best player. Like, their 3 guards are really good. When they're on, they're on. When they're off, they can be beaten by basically anybody in this tournament. That's the case for most of these teams in this tournament, is that if you're playing your best, if San Diego State's playing their best as the 6th seed in this region, they could meet up with Illinois. If Loyola Chicago is playing their best in this region, they could make a huge run. If Oklahoma State's playing their best, they could win the whole thing. When Oklahoma State is playing bad basketball, they could lose to Liberty in the first round. They really could, because Liberty is a very interesting team that has a lot of characteristics that you want in one of these low-seeded teams from a poor conference, quote-unquote, that can make an upset. They have those characteristics that you look for. So that's the case with most of these teams. Obviously, teams like Illinois are more complete. Michigan this season, when healthy, is more complete. Gonzaga is more complete. But, their lows are not as low. That's really the difference. And to win 6 games in a row against at least good teams, you're not going to be bad in this tournament. You have to ride the highs and lows and correct yourself when the other team goes on a 14-2 run. You have to be able to respond to that. If you don't, you're done. So that's the key. So Jacob Young, Geo Baker, Ron Harper Jr., those are Rutgers' 3 guards that can do a lot of different things really well. Guard-wise, I think they match up with most teams, and then they've got someone on the interior defensively to stop people. Rutgers' problem, the last 9 games from 3, they've been shooting 25%. That's obviously not a recipe for success in 2021. So, anyway, that's kind of this region. I didn't bring up the 3-6 matchup that could happen in the second round, West Virginia, San Diego State. I think San Diego State goes on a little run here. Me personally, this is one of the upsets I have. I have San Diego State actually beating Houston and getting to Illinois and then losing.
Youngsters! Oh, my gosh!
Uh-oh.
Why do you have to burst my bubble every day on this show?
You have San Diego State, too?
San Diego State versus Illinois in the Elite 8.
Interesting.
Oh, my gosh, youngster.
Very interesting.
You did it with Baylor the other day. Now you're doing it. I thought I was going to come on here and I was going to get a woo. I was going to get one of those little googly eyes from the youngster in the text. Nope.
No, I'm not surprised at all. That's a very brilliant choice.
San Diego State versus Illinois. Oh my.
That's funny.
Now, we got to tell the listeners, too. We have to tell, we do not get in cahoots and tell each other our picks before the show.
No.
I knew nothing that the youngster picked. Nothing.
Outside of Illinois, probably.
Well, yeah, because you let that out in the Big Ten preview show. They're not losing another game. Well, that means you're picking them to win the championship. I know that. So guess what? I'll have to say this, too. As the brackets roll out, I've got Illinois Gonzaga in the championship game. I have not picked the winner yet. But how can you bet against Illinois? They got it on the outside. They got it in the middle. They're probably playing the best basketball in the country. How can you bet against them? Yeah, they got some tough tests, but you look at that team. Not only are their starting 5 good, they've got bench players that can come in. But how do you bet against them? And Gonzaga's really good because my other 2 brackets I got kind of discombobbled. I've done some shakeups in the other 2 regions. And they're kind of more like Cinderella stories getting to the Final Four. But I think the 2 best teams in the country are Illinois and Gonzaga. But I will not pick my winner probably until this evening. I got to think on it a little bit more. But, man, youngster, all these things where I'm thinking, the old man, somebody's going to say he's off his rocker. There you go, picking the same team as me.
Right.
Jeepers. All right, carry on. We only got about 2 or 3 minutes left on the show, youngster. Let's wrap her up quick.
See, I'm with you. I have Illinois Gonzaga. Obviously, I have Illinois winning the whole thing. We talked about our Final Four picks in the other shows. But I want to talk about Illinois for 2 minutes here because I didn't really go in depth on them. The reason I really think this team is the best in the country, their guards are phenomenal. And then again, you have Coburn on the inside who's averaging basically 17 and 10. And those numbers keep going up because he's just playing better and better. Defensively, he's really good. But offensively, he's a load. So guard-wise, Adam Miller is a very good freshman guard. Sunmu is, arguably the best player in the country right now. He's averaging over 25 and 5. He's the only guy to be doing that. As a guard, he's shooting over 48% from the field, which is great. He's fantastic. Trent Frazier is...
Hey, youngster, remember when he was hurt, when he was out? The thing is, Illinois, they lost a little offensively, but they really didn't miss a beat. That's why I think they're so good. He is their best player, and he's playing really good basketball. But should he get in, let's say, foul trouble, that's what I'm saying. We look at a lot of these teams, and they always the thing we're hearing, well, once you get to their bench, that's probably about 60 teams in the tournament. When you get to their bench, you're in trouble. Illinois, you get to their bench, not going to be as good as the starting five, but pretty darn good. They're going to drop a little, but I think their bench can play with anybody in the country. That's why I have them in the championship game.
Yeah, to that point very quickly, when December was out for a few games, Curbelo came in, who was arguably their point guard off the bench, and he is a future NBA point guard, in my opinion. So he's fantastic. He's a freshman who's playing at a fantastic level. Adam Miller's another freshman who's playing at a very high level. Curbelo off the bench is a joke because, again, he's a future NBA point guard. And then if Coburn does get in foul trouble, which the last few games he actually has throughout this year, he hasn't really, but the last few games he has, they have Bazanish Billy, who's a capable 6'9", 6'10", longer, big. He's not fantastic, but he's capable. So if things go wrong with the guards, and some of them shoot like crap, the forward or Coburn gets in foul trouble, they do have a couple guys off the bench that can step in and do just fine. The one problem with Illinois this year, Troy, if they do lose, I think it's because they're not a fantastic three-point shooting team. They're good. They have a number of guys who can shoot it well, but they're not fantastic at it. And so you have to play a zone. Iowa did this in the Big Ten tournament, the second half of the Big Ten tournament, and it led Iowa back into the game. Illinois scored 40-something points in the first half. The second half, they scored 20-something. That's how you beat Illinois, is you zone them and you hope they don't shoot well from three. You contain Coburn in the middle. Hopefully you get foul trouble. You get your defensive rebounds, and that's how you win. Teams have to play zone because man up against this team is almost kind of a joke in college.
Yeah, well, the other thing when you're playing Illinois, though, is you have to be on your offensive game. You can't be cold because in the middle, you're going to have a lot of one-and-done possessions. You're not going to get a lot of offensive rebounds. If you can find a way to out-offensive rebound Illinois, I didn't say out-rebound them the whole game, but if you can get some offensive rebounds and extend possessions, then you can have a chance and hang in there with Illinois. The problem is not a lot of teams can do that. So you've got to be able to shoot the ball. And being a Badger fan, why can't they beat Illinois? They couldn't shoot. They were heaving up three-pointers and shooting 31% from three, which isn't bad, but it's not good enough. You got to be really good offensively against Illinois because you're just not going to get a lot of possessions.
In terms of, here's my last point, in terms of efficiency, offensive and defensive efficiency this year, Illinois, Michigan are the only two teams to finish in the top 7 in both. Gonzaga's 9th in defense and number 1 offensively. So again, it goes to show that Illinois is a complete team. Defensively, they're fantastic. Michigan, I wish they were 100% healthy, but they're not. So I love this Illinois team for a number of reasons. They'll be cutting the nets down. So if you want to win your bracket challenge, pick Illinois to win the whole thing. I know, Troy, you're still on the question of Gonzaga, which is certainly understandable because they're fantastic as well. That game would be phenomenal. I hope that's the game with you.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Gonzaga has that offensive efficiency to be able to beat Illinois. They have the ability to shoot it well from the outside. They're not going to need the extra possessions. They can go toe-to-toe with Illinois. That's why I'm still on the fence. Make sure you find our bracket challenge, folks. Find us at Youngster Old Man. You can find us on Facebook at Troy Robert. You can find me on LinkedIn at Troy Robert. Go ahead and join. You've already filled out your bracket. Just go import it, click it, add it. Hey, have some fun. See if you're better than the old man or Youngster because we've got some big upsets in our brackets. It might not be too hard to beat us, Youngster. It might not be too hard if we're wrong there. But
we're going big or going home.
Yes, we are. We definitely are cool like our name. For the Youngster and the old man, hope you enjoyed the show today, everybody. Be great. Keep smiling. We'll get back at you soon.